She traveled years just to find me, and I deserved it. The doorbell rang at exactly 2:37 p.m., which, considering Benny Mercer's strict routine of not expecting anyone ever, was already a troubling anomaly. He blinked up from the steaming wreckage of his third attempt at making a grilled cheese sandwich with his prototype toaster, which insisted that all bread needed a preheating interrogation. The toaster beeped disapprovingly as he stood toast. Integrity compromised, it informed him with the smugness only a sentient kitchen appliance could possess. Yeah, well, you try doing this with cheddar that sweats like it's being audited, Benny muttered. He shuffled to the door, still in his space flannel pajama pants and an old MIT hoodie with a coffee stain in the rough shape of Saturn. He peered through the peephole and saw a figure standing impossibly still, tall, slim, wrapped in a coat that shimmered as if woven from oil slick rainbows and bad decisions. Long, silvery blue hair fell over one shoulder, but what really caught him, besides the oddly regal posture in the strange quiet intensity, were the ears, long tapered. Definitely not regulation human. He opened the door 3 in and peered out like a man halfway through a bad dream and a worse sandwich. Can I help you? He asked, the phrase coming out more like, can I survive this? She leaned forward slightly. Her eyes were a metallic gray, swirling like they had their own weather patterns. You deceived me, she said, voice smooth and alien and laced with some kind of bitter nostalgia, but I found you human. There was a long pause. Benny's brain stalled like a junkyard hover car. He blinked once, then twice. Is this about the thing with the expired coupons? Because that was a misunderstanding, and technically the robot cashier said nothing at the time. She stared, not amused. He cleared his throat. Right, no, different thing. Look, I think you may have the wrong guy. I don't usually deceive anyone before breakfast. You are Benjamin Mercer, she said, born in Oregon, studied quantum logic at MIT before being expelled for, let me check. She tapped a glowing panel that emerged from the air like a summoned spreadsheet. Unauthorized wormhole experiments involving 2 bicycles, an abandoned mall, and 1 dog named Frisco. He swallowed hard. Okay, so you do have the right guy, but to be fair, Frisco was a willing participant. She stepped inside, completely ignoring the human concept of invitation. The air around her shimmered faintly like static clinging to old television memories. As she moved, the lights flickered and Benny's coffee machine spun in slow motion before promptly declaring it had achieved sentience and wished to retire. She looked around at the cluttered apartment with disdain, barely concealed. Her eyes settled on the bookshelf, which held too many volumes with titles like Quantum Entanglement for Idiots and The Beginner's Guide to Ethical Time Crimes. Benny followed her in, nervously wringing his hands. So who exactly are you? I am Verla of Qatari, she said, pronouncing it like an ancient melody that could shatter glass or start wars, depending on the mood. And you broke the oath of Neurels the Ninth. That's not a real place, Benny replied instinctively, then realized how dumb that sounded given he just let a space elf into his apartment. Or I mean, maybe it is. I'm not super up-to-date on alien real estate. She turned, glaring at him. You don't remember? Of course they erased you, just like you asked them to. He blinked. Who's they, and why does this sound like a breakup with a memory chip attached? Verla's eyes narrowed. You don't remember the mission, the vault, the pack beneath the twin moons. Okay, you're either quoting a sci-fi romance novel or we dated while I was blackout drunk in another star system. He paused. Is this about child support? A beat passed, then another, and then just the faintest curl of her lip. Not quite a smile, but not entirely not a smile either. Number, it is not about child support, and we did not date. Not exactly. She circled his couch, which currently had a talking pillow that recited Shakespeare. When sat upon you and I were allies bound by necessity and fire. You saved my life, then you disappeared, locking away the very thing you swore to protect. I mean, that sounds like me, but also does it? Benny gestured Helplessly, I've had mild concussions, caffeine-induced hallucinations, and one incident with a rogue VR helmet that made me think I was married to a sentient duck, so you're going to have to be more specific. She walked over to his bookshelf, placing a hand on a strange brass knickknack. He had never been able to identify it. Beeped, spun twice, and projected a brief shimmer of light, an image of a younger Benny in a spacesuit speaking a language that twisted in the air like music made from wind and machinery. Benny gawked. Okay, that's definitely me, and that's definitely not English. You were one of us, she said. You infiltrated your own kind to protect the galaxy from itself. You carried the code fragment of the last whisper in your neural core. You said if anything went wrong, your memory should be purged to protect the mission. Last whisper, he repeated. That sounds like a super weapon or a really bad jazz album. It is a quantum relic that can rewrite matter, undo wars, erase history. The Crackle Dominion has hunted it for centuries. Cool, and I hid it by turning myself into a guy who lives alone with a malfunctioning toaster. The toaster beeped again. This conversation is heating up. Verla ignored it. You made me promise to find you if anything went wrong. You said your Earth self would be unpredictable. I see now what you meant. Benny scratched the back of his head. So let me get this straight. I'm some kind of galactic spy savior who got mind wiped and now lives off grilled cheese and regret. Yes, and we need to recover a reality-bending device before a race of evil space spiders shows up. She nodded. He exhaled. Okay, one last question. Yes, do you eat grilled cheese? Her ears twitched. Only on ceremonial days. Well, he said, gesturing toward the smoldering kitchen. Congratulations, today just became very ceremonial. Benny woke up with a wrench in his hand and a half-built contraption made from a blender, 3 remote controls, and what he was pretty sure used to be a Roomba. Though now it chirped in Morse code and had learned to chase his cat. He blinked groggily, slowly realizing he was in his basement, which hadn't been properly entered by a human since the Great Spider Incident of 2021. His hands were covered in graphite dust and smelling faintly of cinnamon for reasons he couldn't explain. Again from upstairs he heard the rhythmic hum of someone deeply unfamiliar with Earth using a vacuum cleaner. The vacuum was screaming. Viola, he called out, wiping his fingers on his shirt as he stood. What are you doing to the sharkbot? 9,000. A moment of silence, then her voice drifted down in a tone that suggested mild offense and intense focus. I believe your domestic cleaning beast has challenged me. Just press the blue button. I pressed the blue button. It roared at me. That's normal. Then it reversed and chased me into the hallway. I think it growled. I have concerns about its loyalties. Benny sighed, climbing the creaky stairs. When he emerged, the vacuum was sitting in the corner, lights blinking in defeat, while Verla stood with her hands on her hips, victorious but suspicious. She glanced at him. That thing is smarter than it lets on. Join the club. Last week it tried to vacuum the ceiling fan, nearly redecorated the kitchen in blood and drywall. She gave him a long look. You humans have curious standards for weaponizing your appliances. We like to live on the edge. She was about to respond when she saw the smudge on his face. Her expression shifted instantly from sarcastic to sharp. What is that on your cheek? He wiped it and looked at the smear on his hand. Graphite maybe, or some kind of alien space suit. You were working on something. Well, yeah, I guess in my sleep. That's new. It's not new, she said, stepping closer. Your former self left memory threads embedded in your subconscious. They're bleeding through. He frowned. I always thought those dreams were just stress-related dreams of orbital platforms, star relics, and speaking a language that wraps around your tongue like static. I mean, I did eat expired pizza that one time. She ignored that. It's starting. You're rebuilding yourself without realizing it. That explains the blender Roomba hybrid, he said, glancing at the pile. Basement. I thought I was going through a midlife inventor's crisis. You're waking up, she said, and there was a softness In her voice now that hadn't been there the day before, pieces of you are still intact. Benny ran a hand through his hair, which was currently doing its best impersonation of a failed gravity experiment. I guess the big question is, do I want to wake up that other me? He. Sounds complicated, dangerous, responsible. You were a genius, she said, also an idiot. You built a quantum memory vault and then forgot your own birthday. That tracks, but you were brave and kind and very, very annoying. That really tracks. They sat on opposite ends of the couch. The mood suddenly more contemplative. Benny's cat hopped up beside Verla, sniffed her suspiciously, then curled into a ball with a sigh. She didn't move, only glanced down once and murmured something in her native tongue. The cat purred as if agreeing. He leaned forward, elbows on knees. So tell me more about this promise. I broke this last whisper. Why did I hide it? Why inside me? Verla's expression darkened. Because no one would think to look for it in a human, especially not a human pretending to be ordinary. You wanted it protected, kept away from both the crackle and your own kind, my own kind. Some humans found out about it. Not all were pleased that you made a choice without them. There were complications, betrayals. A council was formed. You didn't trust them. Benny winced. I wouldn't trust anyone who uses the word council. Either there was a vote to erase you, she said, but you beat them to it. You fragmented yourself before they could. And what about you? You voted for or against the memory wipe? She hesitated, then looked him dead in the I voted to keep you. I lost. He looked away, rubbing his temples. This is a lot to take in. You're doing better than most species, she said gently. When I told a slug he used to be a war general, he turned into a puddle and tried to marry a lampshade. Well, I've always prided myself on not turning into go under pressure. She cracked a smile. Not yet. They both chuckled, and for a moment the air wasn't heavy with lost identities and world-ending secrets. It was just Benny and Verla and a moody vacuum plotting revenge. Then the couch began to hum. Benny leapt up. Oh no, not again. This thing's been weird since I tried to upgrade it with old Tesla coils. The cushion split, not dramatically but subtly, like a zipper being undone in the fabric of reality. A compartment emerged from the backrest, revealing a small crystalline object. It floated up slowly, glowing with soft pulses of green and gold. Verla froze. That's a memory beacon. He stared. Why was that in my couch? You probably hid it there during one of your episodes. Doesn't sound like me. She arched an eyebrow. Okay, fine, it totally sounds like me. The beacon projected a flickering image, another version of Benny, younger, wearing a reflective suit and a look of grim determination. He spoke quickly in a coded dialect that Benny found both strangely familiar and irritatingly hard to follow. Then the image translated itself into English, the voice eerily matching his own. If you're seeing this, you've reactivated part of the memory matrix. Good, that means Verla found you. Or you found her, or you tripped over something in the basement and caused a timeline hiccup. Either way, the last whisper is still dormant inside you, but the countdown started. The Cal will come. You must recover the full key. You must remember Neurels. You must remember her. The image fizzled, then added almost as an afterthought, also stop leaving sandwiches on top of classified equipment. Mold is a universal constant. The beacon dimmed. Silence. Verla looked at him carefully. You made yourself your own worst enemy, your own safeguard. That's very you. Benny sank back onto the couch, which now buzzed faintly with residual energy. I guess the real question is what happens when I remember everything. She didn't answer right away. Then she said softly, either you save everything or you break it. Well, he said, voice dry, no pressure. The vacuum beeped. Verla nodded toward it. It agrees. Benny groaned. Great. The fate of the galaxy rests on me, a space elf with a grudge and a haunted vacuum cleaner. This is going to end fantastically. Statistically speaking, there's a 22% chance of success. He looked at her. She smiled. I like those odds. The next Morning started with a thunderclap which was confusing because there wasn't a cloud in the sky, or at least not one. That looked particularly committed. Benny rolled over, groaning his dreams still. Echoing with the fragmented language of star charts in binary lullabies, he sat up, rubbing his eyes only to find his cat perched on his chest, glaring at him with the kind of intensity usually reserved for ancient gods and particularly judgmental librarians. "You want breakfast or an explanation for my cosmic identity crisis?" he asked. The cat blinked once, then walked off in a way that said both. Peasant. Downstairs, Verla was already awake, dressed in something that shimmered faintly and buzzed with alien tech woven through the fabric like silk that could hack a satellite. She was filling with the memory beacon, which now hovered dutifully over the kitchen table, emitting low pulses like a digital heartbeat. "You slept through a subdimensional tremor," she said without looking up. Benny yawned. "That explains the dream about juggling plasma babies." "They weren't dreams," she replied. "They were echoes from your suppressed neural archive. The beacon is amplifying the bleed." He walked past her and grabbed a half-eaten granola bar from the counter. "So basically my brain is a leaky storage unit, and the past is breaking through like a raccoon looking for snacks." An uncannily accurate analogy, she said. "If the raccoon could trigger mass extinction events, right?" he said, chewing thoughtfully. "So what's next? Flashbacks? Nosebel leads? Spontaneous alien karaoke? Possibly all three," she said. "But first we need to unlock the beacon's deeper layers." He glanced at it. "Is there a password? Because it's definitely not 1234 or space but 42. I already checked." Verla raised one elegant eyebrow. "Try speaking in Katarin." "The beacon is voice encoded. Your past self would have hidden the trigger behind something only you could say." Benny leaned in toward the beacon, cleared his throat, and tried his best to channel whatever cosmic voice might live inside his slowly deathing brain. "Jauren Fenvikvashta." Nothing happened. The toaster on the counter beeped, translating. "Did you just say my left shoe dreams of spaghetti?" "Look, I'm trying." "Okay," Benny grumbled. "It's not like I can download Rosetta Stone Galactic Spy Edition." Verla sighed. "You're close. The structure was right, just less pasta, more poetry." Benny took a deep breath, closed his eyes, and let the sound rise from somewhere beneath the surface of his memory. This time, the words came smoother, like they'd been waiting for him in the shadows of forgotten starlight. "Jalkrenner Talveshta Venelkersh." The beacon responded. Instantly, a sharp chime echoed through the room, and then a new projection lit the space, an orb of rotating symbols. Diagrams of constellations shifting in rhythmic sequence, then a map, not of Earth, not even of the solar system, somewhere far, far beyond, a place labeled Neurals 9. "That's it," Verla whispered. "That's where you made the pact." The image zoomed closer to the planet, a world of sapphire blue oceans, sprawling crystal cities in twin moons locked in a permanent eclipse. Even the digital rendering hummed with a sort of ancient reverence. Benny stared at it. "I've never seen that place before. You have? You just don't remember it?" "Neurala's 9 is where you agreed to guard the last whisper. It's where everything changed." He looked at the image for a long time, something twisting in his chest, not quite memory, but close enough to hurt. Then the projection flickered and zoomed out again. Red dots appeared around the map's perimeter, lots of them moving inward. "What are those?" crackled Demi. "Ships," she said quietly. "They've begun the search." He frowned. "Okay, but if they're way out there and we're way over here, we've got time, right?" The crackle moved through sublight fractures. "If they find the signal trail from your beacon, they could be here in hours. So plan A. We shut this thing off and pretend we're not home." She gave him a look. "Okay, plan B. We run screaming into the hills. No plan C. We fight them off with vacuums and toaster firepower." "We need to go to Neurals 9, she said, standing now. He groaned. "You know, I was really hopping for a plan D that involved staying in my pajamas and eating cereal." She moved toward the door, already activating a wrist device that shimmered with blue Runes, your escape pod is still operational, hidden in orbit. We'll need to reach the launch uplink hidden. Your garage, my garage, you mean that place where I keep old comic books too. Deflated beach balls and a three-legged lawn chair named Carl, correct, he stared. At her, you stashed a launch uplink, and Carl, your former self, believed no one would check. To be fair, Benny muttered, grabbing his jacket, he's not wrong, even I don't check, Carl. They made their way through the backyard where the grass had become an unruly jungle of robotic weeds. Benny had invented to self-water but instead unionized and now demanded sunlight breaks. Verla avoided them, expertly hopping over a vine that hissed when disturbed. Inside the garage it was exactly as Benny remembered, chaotic, dusty, and mildly judgmental, but fair. Walked straight to the back corner, reached under Carl, and produced a blinking panel hidden in the rusted seat. This uplink connects to your emergency vessel. The entropy's edge sounds comforting. It was your idea, of course it was. The panel lit up and began scanning Benny's face, then his hand, then disturbingly his elbow. The final confirmation came in the form of a loud musical chime in a digital voice. Welcome back, Commander Mercer. Shall I prepare the espresso protocols? He blinked. Wait, I have an espresso protocol. Your past self was very specific, Verla muttered. I love that guy. The garage floor shuttered, panels lifted, a hatch opened with a hiss, revealing a glowing spiral platform beneath, humming with raw energy that shimmered. A portal began to open, circular, blue-green, with ripples of light cascading like someone dropped a star into a pond. Benny looked at her, then at the portal. So this is it. We hop into that thing, fly off to some distant planet where I apparently broke a promise and try to outrun space lizards. Kroll aren't lizards, she said. They're mantis-wasp hybrids with mild telepathy and a strong dislike for sarcasm. He winced. Then I'm doomed, she offered her hand. He took it. Off we go, he said, stepping toward the portal. If I don't come back, tell my cat I tried. You'll come back, she said softly. You always do. And then the light swallowed them whole. The sensation of being sucked through a portal was surprisingly similar to Benny's first roller coaster ride, only wetter and somehow scented like burnt marshmallows and ozone. He landed on his back with a grunt, blinking up at a sky that shimmered lavender and gold, as if someone had spilled a Van Gogh painting across the atmosphere and forgotten to clean up. Above him, twin moons drifted lazily through their permanent eclipse, their halos casting soft shadows on fields of bioluminescent grass. Somewhere in the distance, a creature wailed, a sort of cross between a foghorn and a melancholic walrus. Benny sat up, groaning, and patted himself down to make sure all limbs were accounted for. No new tentacles, good sign. Verla stood nearby, arms folded, watching him with an expression equal parts concern and mild amusement. You survived re-entry. I'm impressed. I blacked out during the middle part, Benny admitted. There was a moment where I think I briefly became a color. Which one? Chartreuse, possibly teal. You always did have range. He got to his feet with the grace of a man who had recently been used as a human slingshot and looked around. So Neurals 9, not bad, bit dramatic. Definitely needs a coffee shop. You own 3, Verla said, already striding toward a narrow path carved between glowing coral-like trees. They doubled as field encryption posts. Of course they did. I also invent frappuccinos that decode languages? Yes, also ones that explode. He stopped. Wait, explode how? She gave him a look. You labeled it Volcano Mocha Supreme. He chuckled, then followed her down the path. Honestly, I'm kind of starting to like pass me bit of a disaster, but inventive. They walked in silence for a while, the path winding deeper into the shimmering forest. Strange creatures darted between trees, floating things with wings like paper lanterns and eyes that blinked in Morse code. Every so often the ground itself rippled faintly, like the planet was dreaming underneath their feet. Eventually the trees opened into a vast clearing. At the center stood what could only be described as a temple made of glass and gravity, its walls floating in segments, shifting slowly in patterns That made Benny's brain itch just to look at it was beautiful in a mildly threatening way, like a cat that's just learned how to operate a blender Verla. Stopped at the edge of the clearing. This is where you made the pact with who? Benny asked. She hesitated. With me. He turned to look at her. You and I were both stationed here, two operatives from opposite sides of a Cold War that had gone lukewarm and passive-aggressive. You had information the Council wanted. I had the tech to bury it so deep no one could reach it without your consent, and we decided to be weird together, Benny said slowly. She gave a small smile. We decided to trust each other. He looked back at the temple. So why don't I remember it? Because the pact required it. You didn't just hide the last whisper inside yourself, you buried everything. Names, places, connections. It was the only way to keep it safe from the Crocall or from your own people. Past me, really, like playing keep away, he muttered. So what's the plan now? She pulled a small sphere from her coat, held it to her temple, and whispered a phrase Benny couldn't quite catch. The sphere glowed, then projected a map over the air, an intricate diagram of the temple's layout with 3 red nodes pulsing in sequence. These are memory anchors, she explained, fragments of your consciousness stored as encrypted echoes. Reactivate them, and the full archive will return along with the coordinates of the last whisper. Benny stared at the map. Right, easy, just go into a haunted alien mind palace and poke around until my brain reboots. You'll be fine, I'll stay in contact from the outside. Comforting, he muttered, stepping into the clearing. If I start screaming, it's probably just the usual memory melting trauma, or I stepped on something squishy. Try not to die again. He entered the temple. The temperature shifted, instantly cool, almost sterile, and filled with a low hum like the echo of an ancient machine breathing in its sleep. As he walked deeper, light coalesced in lines along the floor, guiding him toward the first node. The moment he touched it, a rush of sound and image exploded behind his eyes. He staggered, gripping the wall. There was shouting, laughter, the taste of copper and honey, and a fleeting vision of Verla younger, laughing at something he just said while they dangled their feet over the edge of a floating terrace. Then a name: Project Silent Shore. He gasped. The memory vanished, leaving behind a strange warmth in the smell of ozone. 1 anchor down, he moved to the second node, weaving through corridors that shifted when he wasn't looking directly at them. This time the vision was colder voices arguing his own. Among them, fierce and tired, he was pleading for a different way. Someone slammed a hand down and called him a traitor. Verla's voice cut through it all with a single phrase: then let him choose the silence. The vision snapped shut. His knees buckled. You all right? Came her voice, buzzing through a calm link he hadn't realized was in his ear. Yeah, he panted, just reliving my greatest hits. Feels like my brain's doing cartwheels through emotional glass. You're almost there. The last one will hurt the most, of course it will. He reached the final node. The memory struck like a bolt. He was standing with her. Their hands were joined, glowing with golden light. The pact was spoken, an ancient phrase that locked the knowledge inside him, and then her voice whispering just before everything went black: if you forget me, I'll find you again and again, until you remember. When the vision faded, he found himself on the floor, tears drying on his face. Without knowing when they'd started, Verla was waiting outside when he emerged, watching the moons. He stood beside her. I remember now. She didn't look at him, but her voice was quiet. Then you know what's at stake. The last whisper isn't just a weapon, is it? No, she said, it's a seed, a beginning or an end, and it's inside me. She nodded. You are the last lock, and now the crackle are coming to claim the key. He sighed. Can I at least get a coffee first? I brought rations. Please don't say they taste like fungus again. They taste like nutritionally efficient fungus. He groaned. Somewhere in the sky, a crack opened, a ripple of darkness where starlight vanished. The crackle had arrived. Benny looked at her. Well timed to see if I'm worth remembering. Benny had once told a friend that if aliens ever came for him, he hoped it would be with polite invitations and maybe a cheese Platter, what he got instead was a sky torn open like wrapping paper around a black hole and a crackle dreadship descending like an intergalactic migraine. It was the size of a shopping mall but meaner, and it roared as it emerged, casting shadows that curled like claws. They always make such an entrance, Benny muttered, squinting up. You'd think a species with telepathy could just send a group text. Subtlety isn't the crack way, Viola said, already fiddling with a sleek device strapped to her forearm. They believe in overwhelming force in extremely tight pants. Benny blinked. I'm sorry, did you just say pants? They sheathed their thoraxes in iridium lattice. It's unsettling. A piercing screech split the air, half audio, half brain feel, and made Benny's left eye twitch involuntarily. Okay, yep, they're here. My headache just filed for diplomatic asylum. A shimmering wave rippled outward from the dreadship, and suddenly the clearing where they stood transformed. Holographic terrain rose up around them like a defensive dome. Jagged semi-transparent constructs forming walls, cover points, and what appeared to be a floating vending machine with only 2 buttons labeled meat and possibly meat. Verla activated a shimmer shield that wrapped around them like a cloak of refracted light. We need to reach the signal spire. It's the only thing strong enough to mask your neural imprint from their search algorithms. Is it far? Half a click north through terrain that's now been digitally destabilized, guarded by drone sentries, and also possibly one extremely territorial flower. Cool. So normal Tuesday. They sprinted through the warping terrain, ducking behind glowing walls that blinked in and out of existence. Crackle drones zipped overhead, sleek silver things shaped like spinning arrowheads scanning with glowing green eyes. Benny had the distinct impression that if he so much as hiccuped, one of them would try to vaporize his kidneys. He panted. I always figured if I ended up saving the universe, I'd at least get a cape. You tried that once, Verla said, ducking under a vine that hissed as they passed. The cape got caught in an airlock and nearly killed a diplomat. Okay, but still very heroic aesthetic. They skidded to a stop at the edge of a narrow gorge. Below, the land had melted into liquid geometry. Floating blocks rearranging themselves like Tetris pieces with commitment issues. This wasn't here before, Benny said. Temporal dissonance. The KALL are folding local space to confuse us. So that's illegal, right? In 17 systems. Yes, unfortunately, we're not in any of them. She produced a small disk from her pocket and threw it into the gorge. It hovered for a second, then expanded into a bridge made of light and gentle sarcasm, at least judging by the tiny scrolling messages that read things like, try not to fall, your brain is squishy, and this bridge rated 2 stars by panicked diplomats. After you, Verla said. Benny took a deep breath and stepped onto the bridge. It wobbled. He made a noise not dissimilar to a deflating balloon. This is fine. Everything's fine. My dignity's just on sabbatical. They made it across just as another screech echoed behind them. A crocal hunter dropped from the sky, 7 tall, clad in bone-white armor and wielding a staff that crackled with void energy. It hissed a phrase that sounded like a blender being insulted by a saxophone. Verla replied in the crackle tongue, her voice low and sharp. Benny blinked. What did you say? I told it that if it touches you, I'll personally rewrite its DNA into salad dressing. The hunter lunged. Verla met it head on, her own blades sparking to life, a thin filament of blue energy that sliced the air like a laser scalpel. With an attitude problem, they clashed with thunderous force, each strike lighting the air. Benny did his best to stay out of the way, which meant ducking a lot and throwing the occasional rock that may or may not have been helpful eventually. Viorila swept the staff aside and plunged her blade through the hunter's armor. It screeched once, then collapsed into digital ash. Benny exhaled. You okay? I'm fine. I think I bruised my soul a little. They reached the spire moments later, a towering column of white metal inscribed with runes that pulsed like a heartbeat. As they approached, the spire reacted, drawing power from Benny's presence. A Field of energy rose around it, shielding the area and forcing the encroaching drones to retreat with angry mechanical beeps. Inside, the air felt cooler, calmer. This will hold them off, Verla said. For now. Benny leaned against the spire. Okay, so now that we've punched some wasps and dodged death again, maybe you can explain something. What is the last whisper? She studied him a long moment. It's a memory seed, the sum total of a vanished civilization's knowledge. Compressed into a single sentient waveform, it can teach, heal, chain reality, or destroy it. He stared at her. And I've been carrying this thing around like a cosmic USB stick. It was the only way to keep it from those who'd use it to rewrite time. Okay, but seriously, who are you? I mean, really? Viola sighed. I was born on a drifting colony between systems raised by scholars trained as a mindwaver, but then I met you and things got complicated. He blinked. Because I was handsome, because you were reckless, she said, but there was a smile in her voice, but also kind. You saw what others didn't. You believed in peace when everyone else was sharpening knives. Benny rubbed the back of his neck. Look past me sounds pretty cool, but I'm still just a guy with mediocre cardio and a cat who thinks I'm his butler. You're more than that, she said. You always were. You just forgot. The spire pulsed again. A new signal began to form, coordinates encoded in shimmering light. What's that? He asked. The location of the last whisper's final lock. It's time, Benny, we end this. Another screech pierced the shield. They're adapting, she said. We'll have to move fast. Then let's go, he said, squaring his shoulders before they turned my brain into a science experiment. As they prepared to move, Benny turned to her. Hey, just for the record, if we survive this, I'd like to buy you a real coffee, the kind that doesn't explode. She raised a brow. Only if there's biscotti. Deal. The spire faded behind them as they ran. A beacon now lit with the light of a memory waking from its long sleep in the storm of war, chasing fast behind the shuttle Verla summoned, was the sort of ride that would make most people wet themselves from either excitement or mild terror. It screamed down from orbit, cloaked in shadow, sleek and silent. Shaped like a manta ray wearing stealth armor, the crackle firestorm behind them lit the sky with a brilliant blue cascade, and Benny was 90% sure the air around them had developed a fear-based intelligence and wanted to file for retirement. As they sprinted across the ridge toward the incoming shuttle, Benny shouted over the wind, do we have to run toward the thing that looks like it's auditioning to be a metal vampire? It's